Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. We have got a very big episode for you today. First, we're going to cover the news of the week. After this weekend's Kentucky Supreme Court ruling, is Governor Beshear going to be able to keep our Commonwealth safe through this horrible pandemic? We'll discuss Afghanistan with Mitch and Rand, both claiming victory, while President Biden is blamed for botched withdrawal. Kimberly will be bringing some updates from the front lines as her daughter shares her boots on the ground perspective. And we'll cover the shameless ability of federal Republicans to tout programs funded by a bill they unanimously voted against in a segment we call Mitchpocracy. Then we're going to be joined by Charles Booker. That's right, the leading candidate to take on Rand Paul in 440 days. We're going to hear his vision for our Commonwealth, what he thinks about Rand Paul's COVID lies and misinformation, what his strategy would be to support President Biden's agenda in the face of Mitch McConnell's filibuster-based opposition, and really whatever else he wants to share with the Kernels of Truth, all before we wrap up with our action events calendar. So first off, though, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? We know our Commonwealth has some work to do if we're going to beat back the tide of bad policy, from partisan gerrymandering to blocking our governor's ability to keep the state safe during a pandemic. If you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, join Progress Kentucky. It's easy. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you spend your time on social media. Just make sure to like and share and comment on our content. And if you like what you're hearing on Kernels of Truth, give us a thumbs up, leave us a review, or share out the show. But maybe you're looking to get even more involved. Hit up our volunteer link, send us your information so we can get your help for one of our organizing projects, because democracy is not a spectator sport, folks. We need you out of the stands and onto the field. Maybe you're not ready to hit the streets or the phones. You can still support our efforts with a financial investment. We have got a goal of raising $1,500 for our current organizing project, and we are still less than 20% of the way there. So please consider making a donation right now. Go hit us up on Act Blue. Make a donation to support our campaign to turn Kentucky purple at our Secure Act Blue website. So let's check in with our co-host, shall we? Let us know who you are, where you are, and what does your protest sign say today? You there, viewers on the internet, we mean you too. Remember, this is not a talking heads news show. This is not MSNBC. This is a digital demonstration for a more compassionate Commonwealth. So we have got a protest sign. What's your sign say? Mine says, Dr. Paul does not deserve a Kentucky medical license. My name is Aaron. I am coming to you from Chilesburg, a lovely deed restricted community in the outskirts of Lexington. Doug, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Doug Price from Harrison County, Kentucky, the home of E.D. Buller, a leading manufacturer of high quality personal protective equipment and other things. My sign says, and it's directed to the Kentucky Republican legislators, put up or shut up.
Nice. Kimberly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Cecil Jones, and I'm coming to you from my living room in Louisville, Kentucky, home of the Kentucky Derby, right? And my protest sign says today that I was just going to let everybody else kind of win today, because for 2 weeks in a row, I came out with a sign that will beat people every time. Every time. We love Dr. Fauci because he's giving us the true and the correct information about the coronavirus. So my sign says today, personally, okay, that we love Dr. Fauci and keep listening to him. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Kimberly. And thank you, Doug. We do love Dr. Fauci. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I feel like I've spent enough time with him through his interviews over the course of this 20th year of our epidemic and pandemic. I feel like I know him pretty well. We've got some signs in the chat. Nate Orshan, if you might be familiar with Nate Orshan, if you've heard the music, our lead-in music, his sign says "Hood to the Holler 2022," and Annabelle just says we've stepped up our sign game. So that's, appreciate the kudos. We're taking the time. We got the markers. We're writing it out. And Ken, behind the boards, what have you got for us?
I have we've all been worried and, about what's going on in Afghanistan. And I feel like I've been really consistent on this for the last 20 years. My sign is war. What is it good for? I believe that you probably have heard this song, and I believe the response is absolutely nothing.
Clearly, that songwriter was not a defense contractor. All right, so
Aaron, hold on. I can't help myself. I always think in songs. I promise I do. The song is actually by the group called War, who also sung "Why Can't We Be Friends?" And yeah, it was like war. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. I just had to do that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Nate would
Absolutely.
appreciate what I'm doing. He would appreciate it.
I'm sure he would. Say it again, he says. All right, so let's go from our signs. Lovely job with the protest signs, everybody. To news of the week. We've got a few stories we're going to get into, and Doug is going to kick us off.
Yes, I titled this Good versus Evil. So much drama. Governor Beshear is trying to do what is best for our Commonwealth, and the Republican legislative leadership and other Republican office holders are attempting to stop him in his tracks every step of the way. When Governor Beshear announced new mask requirements, you knew that A.G. Cameron would file suit against the requirement, and the Republican leadership would immediately accuse the governor of not following the law. Most times, the legislators point to the fact that the people of Kentucky elected them to enact the laws that they support, failing to mention that Governor Beshear was elected by the people to act as the CEO of the Commonwealth. The suit was filed against the current measures, and the Kentucky Supreme Court ruled that under the law, the governor did not have the powers to mandate masks. Note that the law was changed this past general session since the Republican legislators did not agree with the governor being able to call an emergency. One would think that a body that can only meet once a year for a specified time would want the CEO to be able to address emergencies. While this is going on, the Kentucky Department of Education, which is not a part of the executive branch of government, met and adopted a mask mandate. At that time, the Republican leadership placed the matter before the court system replace the matter before the Administrative Review Committee, ostensibly to discuss the governor's mask mandate. I believe the KBE emergency order is not subject to overrule by the legislators and is not covered under the new law passed in order to limit the powers of the governor. KDE does not report to the governor, nor do they report to the legislature, or at least until the legislature tries to pass legislation that the legislators control everything. So what happens going forward? Something of an impasse due to the fact that currently the legislature can only meet in general session, which is once a year, or in a special session that must be called by the governor. The special session can only address what the governor calls for them to address and can only meet the number of days as specified by the governor. The last estimate of the cost was about $68,000 a day. An interesting comment from Winston Griffin, chairman of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. The chamber recognizes the importance of masking in schools at this time because masking not only keeps our children and teachers safe, but also because of its impact on the workforce. We learned last year that when a student gets exposed to the virus and needs to quarantine, this has an impact on the work life of parents. Masking can help mitigate these issues and keep us all safer. But the best way to keep us safe and keep our economy going is for all Kentuckians to get vaccinated. The chamber is a strong supporter of Republicans, so this certainly will be a factor going forward. Senate President Stivers said it is too early to say a special session on the COVID response could be called. However, he says if lawmakers are called, they already have a folder prepared of response items, but he won't say what is in there specifically, though. He did suggest the legislature may have to take action on emergency certifications for out-of-state healthcare providers, adding non-traditional instruction days for K through 12 schools, and finding ways to incentivize people into taking COVID-19 shots. During the last general session, the Republican-led legislature limited the number of NTI days. This was a direct effort to keep schools from closing due to the pandemic. This law is now coming back to haunt the Republicans, who now are seeing schools closed due to COVID, while at the same time not wanting masks to be worn by school students. In my opinion, they are trying to appease their base and have created a serious problem for the people of the Commonwealth and for their party. Beshear said at his late Monday afternoon news conference that he considers valid the State Board of Education emergency regulation, and that will remain in effect as well until I guess somebody takes that to court. In a news conference yesterday, Senator Sivers indicated a willingness to work with the governor. Have they realized to do nothing is wrong? Yesterday, Stivers announced a new effort to get people to take the vaccine, but stood hard on the line. Hey guys, this is just a suggestion, not a mandate. And he announced a total cure for all things related to our COVID-19 pandemic. Coupons for pizza rolls. Way to go, Stivers. The bottom line, Republican legislators seem to be centered on disrupting anything the governor proposes, and so far have failed to produce anything substantive. So as my sign says, the Republicans need to put up or shut up. Back to you, Aaron.
Thanks so much, Doug. Yeah, so do we have any detail on the pizza roll coupons? Are these Geno's? Are they Totino's? Are they pepperoni, perhaps? Because, I think that, the right pizza roll could absolutely get somebody to finally get off the dime and get the vaccine that's been free and widely available for how many months now? 6-8 months now? Pizza rolls. That's the kind of brilliant policy suggestions we can turn to the Kentucky GOP for. Pizza rolls. Meanwhile, the numbers keep climbing, right? Today, new cases, nearly 5,000 new cases, the third highest total for the entire pandemic, 1,500 of which are kids 18 and under. There were 65 new deaths reported today, and the positivity rate is over 13%. The breakthrough infections are absolutely happening. Thankfully, it's keeping, people by and large out of the hospital, because the hospital is full of people who are just having regular infections. They're not breakthrough infections because these people have not been vaccinated. So yeah, probably, maybe it's the choice between, being intubated and going to the ICU or a pizza roll. Maybe that's the choice that they need to be confronted with. But it's just so outrageous to me that the Republicans cried and whined and wanted to have a role in it, and it's okay, you now have a role because you've gamed the system through your hyper majority in Frankfurt. What's your plan? Oh, it's pizza rolls. I don't know. Ken, what's your take on it?
Pizza rolls. The COVID looks kind of like a pizza roll. But I honestly, I don't have much to say. I mean, we talk about this content, this stuff every week, and our content gets taken down because we cover Rand Paul, and his misinformation takes our content down. All I want to know is why isn't the goal to stop the COVID spread and save lives? Where does freedom, how are they going to take our freedom by saving us from this deadly disease? I don't see the mixture between freedom and COVID.
Well, that's because you're spelling freedom wrong and you've forgotten the D-U-M-B part of freedom. The idea that here we are and we have politicized a pandemic to the degree that it's part of our culture war. Like a mask, a simple thing you can do to love your neighbor, take care of your neighbor, help keep your kids safe, the folks who can't get vaccinated, is part of politics and owning the libs. It is just the most outrageous and ridiculous thing. And the fact that Rand Paul is leaning into it as part of his reelection strategy is just, the guy does not deserve his medical license. That's for sure. Kimberly, you got anything on this story?
I always have something on these type of stories. Every week, I continue to say the same thing as I am posting as well, our show, so everybody can see us. What else do we expect from them? And even with something as catastrophic as the coronavirus and everything else that's going on in America and abroad, why would we ever think that they would step up to the plate and then they're going to give crumbs out as usual? I mean, it's just business as usual. How can I say? Repubs as usual.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, we should not be surprised or shocked. We should not anticipate a different response because all they've got are culture wars, Fox News, and just, trying to make science political. Like I've said before, the GOP has a body count. All right, so we're going to do our second story now, news of the week. And then we are going to, we think, be joined by Charles Booker right at the half-hour mark. So look forward to that, folks. Charles Booker will be coming up shortly. But we want to touch on the fact that Mitch and Rand are both claiming victory in their views on Afghanistan. So that Afghanistan is clearly in the news, probably the most attention being paid to Afghanistan since the first week of the Afghanistan war and invasion 20 years ago. And what we are thinking is pretty amazing here is that they are both claiming victory, even though they completely disagree with one another. And that's what happens when the buck doesn't stop with a senator. You just get to shoot your mouth off and say you were right. Even though they, I think if Mitch had his way, we would never leave, apparently. 20 years would only be the beginning, apparently, which I guess that makes sense, right? Because to such a long-lived political animal such as Mitch, 20 years is nothing, right? It's barely half his time in the U.S. Senate. And then Rand Paul is basically agreeing with Biden and that it was time to get out long ago. But of course, Rand Paul's not in charge of anything except shooting his mouth off. So he doesn't get to worry about the actual logistics of pulling out of a 20-year occupation. He just gets to play, kind of Monday morning quarterback. But Bill Raggio, who's the senior fellow at the Nonpartisan Foundation for Defense of Democracies, was willing to go on record about these two characters from a great story in the Lexington Herald Leader. And he said they're both wrong. He says, Rand Paul basically holds the same position as the Biden administration. An objective viewer would say that was pretty wrong because it didn't happen the way we thought in terms of the pullout and the handover. And then Raggio mentioned about McConnell saying he's wrong because the call to keep U.S. forces there was just staving off the inevitable if they stayed on the same path. So keeping the forces without changing the way we did things wouldn't have changed the ultimate outcome. It just would have delayed it. Personally, and again, I'm not an expert like Bill Raggio, but personally, I am increasingly skeptical that there existed a good way to get out. The hand that Biden was dealt wasn't a great one. I am fairly certain Biden agrees with Rand Paul. The time to get out was immediately post 9/11 or later, like after we hunted down bin Laden. But, when the Taliban was dismantled, and when Al-Qaeda's terrorist network was absolutely disrupted, that was the original goal. And then it morphed, as it always does, this kind of defense contractor, military industrial complex blob just kind of took over and just got addicted to the money and the amazing amount of profits that these companies were able to generate. But Dave Roberts on Twitter, who I follow because he does a lot of really good work on clean energy, DR Volts, he had I think an important thread on Twitter talking about this. What specifically do people want Biden to do differently, right? So Trump signed the deal with the Taliban. Biden pushed back the withdrawal date. One reason he pushed back the withdrawal date was to get more folks out, right? That special immigrant visa process is quite cumbersome. So all these translators that the military just owe their lives to, these translators that fought shoulder to shoulder with our Marines and our Army and everyone for 20 years, we promised them we would help them get out. And Stephen Miller, folks recall, racist in chief Stephen Miller, made sure that process was as dismantled and as slow as humanly possible. And that was something that the Trump administration, handed off to Biden, which was a non-functioning SIV process. And so Biden did what he, what he knew we needed to do, which was to start that process functioning again. But it is inherently a slow process. So, it's really that's a problem that I think Biden should have done more to fix. Absolutely. But we now have Stephen Miller not acknowledging this, the special immigrant visa process that he screwed up. He is working with Tucker Carlson to fan the flames of racist opposition to bring in our translators to the U.S. So the military now feel like they've been made liars of, because so many translators have been left behind. But I don't know if folks know this SIV process, the only way you can qualify it as a translator for the military in Afghanistan, you have to work for the military for 2 years. So you have to be in the fight against the Taliban for 2 years, making your family far more vulnerable, putting yourself out there on the line personally. But if you think about it, that's pretty extreme, because soldiers who deploy 2 or 3 times won't spend 2 years on the ground in Afghanistan, right? But that was the minimum term of service for translators to hit their SIV threshold. But even then, they were slow walked, or they're denied outright multiple times without clear reasoning or without any explanation. It's a hugely intense vetting process, and you can't really do a lot of these interviews when your embassy has fallen. So that's a problem. But the rosiest projection for how long the Afghan government could last was like 18 months. How many more folks would have gotten through that process in 18 more months? Probably not nearly enough, right? So despite the very fall of Saigon start to the withdrawal, they have pulled like 70,700 plus people out since August 14th. And I think that is significant. It was, looked botched because it, was botched. And also, how in the heck do you do that better? But I think at this point they're on track. I don't know if they're on track to get everyone out by August 31st. I think there's a lot of people that aren't actually kind of willingly coming, people that want to stay behind. But they're getting a heck of a lot of folks out very quickly and have controlled the situation at the airport fairly well now. But yeah, it definitely didn't look good for a few days for sure. And again, no one saw the Afghanistan government and military falling in 11 days. So that's a pretty quick time to respond there. All right. And I know, Kimberly, you've got some good information for us. What can you add to the story?
What I would like to add to this story, actually, I have 2 sources. One is my daughter, who is a part of the United States Air Force and deployed right now as we speak in Doha, Qatar. Actually, they say Qatar. And also having information and volunteering to go to Kabul in Afghanistan to help with evacuations. Then I do have another source at the Pentagon. So what I'm hearing at this particular point in time, Aaron, is that really no one understands exactly how this culture works. As I had stated before, it's 5 tribes that really should be 5 different countries. And the Taliban, those are, you see the multitude of people that want to get out, that have terror, but that is not the majority of the Afghans. The reason being is because the Taliban, They are Afghans' sons. This is their country. This is where they are from. And people think that President Biden is not doing enough as we speak to get people out. Yes, it is happening. I know of a situation right now. Sources tell me that there was a secret mission to get American US citizens out and their families out of Kandahar, which is a hostile territory. There was an explosion on a helicopter, an IED that was met with the helicopter, but all colleagues of the Air Force and the Marines, they are okay. I like to report that. But we are doing everything that we possibly can. Now, when you have adversaries like China and Iran and Russia that are also helping the cause, and then also when you're talking about the Afghan people, they are a simple people. And we came in there, as we always do, as Captain America savior to save a country that actually did not need saving from. So when we look at this situation, and everyone wants to blame President Biden, as the UN is also saying at this particular time, they would like to investigate on humanitarian discrepancies of this administration. But I'd like to pause for 1 second right there and bring people back to alleged President Trump when he cleared troops out of Syria. Did we forget about that already? Did we forget about the people that were left behind? Nothing that could be done. There was not even a plan or an execution after the thought of a plan to get those people out that have helped us, that were translators. So tell me what the difference is. And when you're talking about the Afghanistan nation, you're talking about people that tend to just kind of go with the flow of what is being offered to them at that moment, almost like who has the most power. Then when we also look back on it, let's see where all the money's coming from and where the money went. This 20 years in Afghanistan, it only helped the defense companies. When you look at Wall Street, we actually stayed there and they made money while men and women died. My daughter was deployed to Afghanistan, putting her life in danger from 2019 to 2020. And even as an officer, missiles and bombs coming down. And she laughed the other day and said, it looks so funny to see them clearing out Bagram Air Base where she was stationed. But she said, well, we only had to run and evacuate, maybe about 16, 17 times. So I guess I really didn't have a very bad deployment over there. Do you know how traumatizing that has been to our women and men that serve this country, that never get the respect that they are due? We as Americans have done everything that we possibly could do. A lot of these Americans that are over there, they own companies, okay? They were alerted, they knew, and they did not want to come. The situation outside of the Kabul airport, we have no jurisdiction over that. That is Taliban country. Once you come behind those gates, if you can make it, this is where you get your cover and your protection. And also, I'd like to bring up one other thing as well and see what you guys think about this. But President Biden inherited this, and it was actually called a surrender agreement. And his administration, as we have talked about before, was unwilling to give the SVIs to Afghans. So what were we supposed to do? If we remain in Afghanistan any longer, there's going to be another war. Can this country economically, morally, take another war right now? especially when you have China and Russia and Iran committing to military exercises. And let us not forget what's going on in Iraq as well. Some of it we deserve, but most of it we don't. So I just want to tell our viewers and listeners the truth. We as Americans, our military stands strong. Our intelligence agency stands strong. Our administration and president of the United States stands strong. We have done everything we possibly can do. But if you've never had boots on the ground and you really don't go in those particular type of circles to know the inside track, it can look catastrophic. Back to you, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Yeah, so we are going to be going to Charles Booker in just a minute, and I wanted to just give our co-host a chance to weigh in on this, very important issue of the day. Ken, did you have something you wanted to say about it?
Yeah, the vindication, like, how can what are they vindicated about? Like, I don't even get it. How could anyone claim victory? I mean, Korea, Vietnam, Palestine, Lebanon, Grenada, Iraq, Afghanistan. $2 trillion of nation building in Afghanistan, and for 20 years we've been doing it wrong. Clearly, it took them 13 days. I don't think when the U.S. military went to Afghanistan, it took longer than 13 days to secure the country by far. So Trump in February signed a deal with the Taliban, saying, as Kimberly said, to surrender. But, for me, it just goes back to the beginning again and again and again. Bush, Cheney, I met Donald Rumsfeld. I met Joe Wilson. Different war. I realize that was Iraq. This is Afghanistan. But the private military industrial complex, I feel like, pushed us into this war. And I feel like the president needs to be the commander in chief. And what Biden did is correct. I think that Obama was pressured to stay in Afghanistan, and he should have left when he tried. What happened in Iraq very shortly after the U.S. pull out, they had to fight back for all that territory. In Afghanistan, it fell even quicker, and nobody was expecting that. So I don't think there was a failure of anything except for us being there, and I think that Biden did the right thing.
Yeah, and I think, again, Biden's been incredibly consistent through his career, right? He wanted to get out when he was the vice president. He just didn't have the chance to do it. He wasn't the decider in chief at that point. Ken, anything you wanted to add before we move on to Charles Booker?
That was me. I just said that. That was me.
Yep, sorry. By Ken, I mean Doug.
This, Aaron,
but by Ken, I mean Doug.
Other choice. There was no other choice. An agreement was signed by previous administration. So it's like you inherit that. You inherit that. So
I don't think I think some people have said that, and I'm like, we'll want to blame Trump. That's our inherent bias, is we want to blame Trump, and it's really easy because he screwed up pretty much everything. But I don't know that Trump and Biden, actually disagreed about that process of signing off to say, hey, we're getting out. I think they probably would have done it differently. I think that Biden would have included the actual Afghanistan government in that agreement and forced the Taliban to kind of concede and acknowledge that. But yeah, no, it's a mess.
How do you get
out of the war?
Me started on the Afghan government and the corruption and the money that was given to them. That's another subject for another day.
I'm just going to ugly situation, and we wasted a lot of money and a lot of lives. Our lives, 2,000 plus U.S. soldiers. But how many Afghanistan people, hundreds of thousands, like 170,000 people in Afghanistan died? That doesn't get a lot of attention. Our 2,500 is certainly problematic, and we want those, men and women back. But, it was a travesty. There was, again, war. What's it good for? We should absolutely move on. But I did want to offer Doug any final thoughts.
Just a quick comment. A former Trump National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, condemned the Trump-Taliban deal and stated that Mike Pompeo signed a surrender agreement, just like Kimberly mentioned earlier. In a recent speech, I hate to even say his name, Trump said, "This will go down as one of the greatest military defeats of all time. It did not have to happen that way. This is not a withdrawal. This was a total surrender, a surrender for no reason." Mr. Trump, you were the one who signed the deal. You know who he sounds like? Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, it was a pathetic display, of course.
I just want to say one thing before we get to Charles Booker, which I know I'm excited for him to come on next. But in case my daughter is looking and listening to us, which she does from time to time, and I have not been able to really communicate with her, I just want to tell her, I am so proud of you and thank you for your service, not just for me and our family, but I want to tell you, thank you for your service for every American in this country. And we are proud of you. You are a Kentuckian born and bred, and you are over there kicking butt. And we just want to say that we love you and thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
100%. It's, it's not the soldiers that failed this, right? It was the kind of political and the kind of complex built around it to decide that the military is not great at nation building. Why in the world would they be, right? That's not their job, right? But I think the things they do very well, and we definitely appreciate their service. All right, so we're gonna move on now, and we are going to very excited to bring on the show State Representative Charles Booker, the man running to take down Rand Paul in 440 days. Former state representative, former Senate candidate, current Senate candidate, and a true blue, dyed-in-the-wool progressive candidate, the likes of which Kentucky has never seen. He's a proud supporter of the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, and of course was promptly labeled by the Kentucky GOP as a very scary socialist. But Charles, welcome back to our live stream. Congrats on the brand new kiddo. How is your sleep, sir?
Well, first of all, it's good to be back with you all. And I want to echo the comments and everyone that's watching. If you have served, my sister-in-law served in Afghanistan. We have a flag over our fireplace that she sent home to us. Thank you for your sacrifice. I know you all had a great, healthy dialogue there, but just wanted to throw that in there. As far as at home, there is no sleep. I've just embraced that. This is our third daughter. It's the best thing in the world. But no, very little sleep.
Third daughter, you are so very outnumbered. As the father of two daughters, like you're toast.
I know who the bosses are, so I'm very clear.
Yeah, we need to make sure you win so you can be in charge of something. Because that's not going to happen in your household. I'm sorry to say. But no, it's really exciting to see the kind of enthusiasm and the response. The last time you ran, your vision for our Commonwealth was often distilled to kind of helping communities who are hurting throughout the state, from the hood to the holler. That line that caught fire, that vision. And now you even had an organization called Hood to the Holler. How are you sharing that vision this time around? How has your campaign evolved from your first time running statewide?
Yeah, well, first of all, the framing in this rallying cry of Hood to the Holler, from the hood to the holler, was really a declaration of saying that we have so much in common. We may be in different parts of the map, different parts of the Commonwealth, but we're family. And if we all stand together and lean into those common bonds, we can win. We can lead for big change. We can take care of our families. We can end poverty. We can pull up the roots of racism. We're unstoppable. It's really about love and hope and coming together. And, when I ran in the last cycle, we were telling the story. We were introducing the story. And a lot of people didn't think it was possible. I had folks that had voted for Trump that were organizing with me, folks that had never voted before that were organizing with us. And we were showing that folks that are in urban and rural communities, Black, white, and brown, can stand together. And then you saw the height of racial tension as Breonna Taylor's door was busted down. And then this pandemic that's been crippling us. And so now in this campaign cycle, we have our strength with us. People understand what this is. And so we're walking in lockstep and doing our organizing early which is really exciting. We're seeing support from all 120 counties, and we're going to prove that real change is possible in Kentucky, especially in Kentucky.
Well, that's fantastic. And I do think that kind of the no off year approach, and there's this, I'm like totally torn because I really think campaigns are too long, but I also understand that, you got to run in the system that you have. And I'm all for like some law that says, no, really, campaign season is 3 months out. And that's the only time you get to campaign, because good God, we spend a lot of money, we spend a lot of time, and you have to break through because people just don't pay attention. But it is certainly something that you look at our election system, you wonder, like, is this really the best we could do? And I'm proud of Democrats. I feel like we've done a really good job of figuring out grassroots fundraising. We've been able to level the playing field, because for the longest time, Republicans had such an advantage because they were able to get that kind of big dollar, those policies align. Their policies are like, hey, what do the big dollar corporate interests want? Good, that's what we're for, right? So, and Democrats have, and I think you especially, done an amazing job of building that grassroots appeal all across the state. I'm sure even across the nation, people are like excited about your campaign, your candidacy, and the messaging. But how is it going? With 440 days to go, are you going to have the energy that it's going to take to get across that finish line?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, look, I've been saying from the beginning, we're not going to just win. We're going to blow out Rand Paul, because this is bigger than him. It was bigger than Mitch McConnell. This is my life's work. This is about us transforming Kentucky because we deserve better. No one should have to ration insulin. No one should have to go without food to take care of their children. Industries have left and never come back. Communities have been left behind. We've been getting screwed by these politicians. And I know you all have seen the news and talked about Rand Paul in the middle of this pandemic, trying to get stocks in remdesivir as his wife, and them trying to profit off of this pandemic while he's saying, don't wear your mask, burn your mask, don't get a vaccine. And so what we've been doing now is really telling the story about issues that Kentuckians are facing in a real way, and saying that we finally need leadership that's going to fight for us, not against us, not treat us like a step stool. And it goes down to what's most important to you, what's pissing you off, and these issues that we talk about, again, make sure everyone has health care. You turn on your faucet, the water's clean. Your utility rates aren't crippling you. Your children can get childcare because we are covering childcare, and preschool is universal. So you're not blocking young families from getting on their feet. We're getting rid of college student debt, because I was the first in my family to go to college. Both my parents didn't graduate high school. And for a lot of folks, where you come from and how much money you have in your pocket, in a lot of ways limits how far you can go, and that shouldn't be, because we're brilliant in Kentucky. And by telling that story, we're seeing people that are fired up, man, and I'm so inspired by it. And so my vision is, from the hood to the holler, we can stand together and lead for a new future in Kentucky, and I'm calling that a Kentucky New Deal. We're going to roll that out more in earnest over this campaign really soon, but it's really this broader vision that we can all rally together and fight back. And while we're dealing with COVID now, trying to get through this, we have to come together. We have to.
100%. I'm so glad you mentioned the fact that Rand Paul is trying to, make money off people going to the hospital. I think the fact that he and his wife bought stock, first time in 10 years, they bought an actual stock, and it just happened to be after he got a briefing that average ears did not get about how bad COVID was going to be. And he invested in the company that actually ensures that, people can survive getting COVID, right? And he's the guy who's saying, you shouldn't wear a mask. Look, I am not, an FBI investigator or an FEC investigator. This just stinks to high heaven, and I hope he's held accountable. But I hope folks also see we've got a petition out there right now. We're asking the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure. That is, in fact, what it's called. That's the thing. The Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure to investigate his statements and make sure that he's held accountable for his unethical medical advice of don't wear a mask during a goddamn pandemic. So I think we got, you also touched on voting there, which I think is clearly really important. I think we got Doug queued up to ask a really important question about voting.
Okay. Sure. So glad to have you here, Charles.
Thank you.
That's actually my first name too. So we have something in common.
It's a good name.
I agree. Do you have any more hot takes on the House passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act yesterday, but despite multiple efforts to pass that and the For the People Act to protect the right to vote in the Senate, the filibuster wielded by the evil Emperor Mitch McConnell has the effort effectively bottled up. How do you think you could help move Biden's agenda past Mitch's filibuster-fueled obstruction?
You know, it's really, it's frustrating. That's not a good enough word. To see this tool, the filibuster, which, you know, folks call it a relic of Jim Crow. I agree with that. It's been used to halt any efforts that would mean that we fight for greater equity. It has not been used to bring bipartisanship, quite the opposite, actually. And in this moment where we saw an insurrection on the seat of democracy in our country, lives were lost, men and women in uniform who stepped up to protect the institution of our democracy have still been suffering, that we are seeing, you know, this constant attack and undermining on the ability to be heard at the ballot box and to have trust in our democratic process. And I stood up on the House floor a couple of years back as state representative and shared a story about my granddad. He told me stories when I was little. I never thought I'd be telling them to the world or to you, but he told me stories about having to guess the number of beans in a jar. So he's from Mississippi, and you know, he wasn't able to do it at times. He couldn't vote. And so our history is very real, and we need to protect the right for everyone to be heard at the ballot box. Kentucky has been one of the most disenfranchised states in the country. So it is particularly hard to be heard here. And when you see poverty that's generational, families that are suffering, and we don't have a voice to change it, that ain't right. You know, and the John Lewis legislation, the For the People Act, we need public finance. We got to get this big money out of these campaigns so that people can finally be heard. And I'm going to fight for that. And when I'm in the Senate, you know how I'm going to vote. But before that, we're mobilizing people. So we're launching statewide organizing in the campaign. So within the next couple of weeks, you will see we're going to be having folks tell stories about what it means to be heard at the ballot box. And we're going to be registering folks, especially those who got their rights restored from Governor Beshear's executive order. There's still a lot of them that don't know. So we're going to be pushing to put pressure on our legislators. That includes folks like Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, who seem to think that the filibuster's fine for them. We're going to fight like hell. And then when I get up there, you know how I'm going to work for you.
I'm so glad to hear that. I know in Kentucky, if we have 45% of the people that vote, then a candidate wins about 23%. That candidate takes that victory, quote unquote victory, and says, well, I'm going to do what the people want. He or she's going to do what 23% of the people want. Right. And the other 77% of the people are not represented. So anything that can be done to increase voting and get more people to vote has got to be good for everybody.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Doug. Good question. Kimberly, do you have a question for Charles?
I sure do. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. The last time I saw you and talked to you was at Fancy Vax. You know, tell me, what are your thoughts as Rand Paul continues to do what he does best, and that's called lying, right, about the COVID, and, you know, this thing where he's always attacking, I'm going to call him the Honorable Dr. Fauci because he's been through so much. And the misinformation that's spewed all the time through pundits like Sean Hannity and Carlson Tucker, Newsmax channel, One American News, and of course, the number one thing for Rand Paul people is Fox News. How can we dispel that? What do we do with a Rand Paul?
You know, this speaks to the power of organizing. You know, as frustrated as we are about the lies that are lifted up, we got to put the truth out there. We have to talk to our family, our friends, the folks that we go to school with, the church with, our neighbors. We have to have those conversations, and we have to keep doing it. One thing that I've learned over the years and working in every level of government, especially at the local level, is the folks that call the office the most, the folks that make the most noise, those are the ones that get listened to. Now, it may not be that many folks, but if they raise enough sand, you're going to respond to them. Now, what I believe in my heart is that there are more of us that want to take care of our families, that want to be safe, that want to get this pandemic out of the way so that we can be okay. I believe there's more of us than those who want to weaponize conspiracies and want to sow fear. So we got to do the work. And, you know, one thing I'm leading by example in is going to places across Kentucky and in venues. I'm gonna go on Fox News. I'm gonna go everywhere to tell the truth because I love the people of Kentucky. That's something we don't hear from our elected officials enough, folks that actually give a damn about us. And so by organizing around the truth and training folks on how to talk to one another and giving them the tools to do it, and even incentivizing and putting money in folks' pockets. If you think about what happened in Georgia in the runoffs, they were paying folks to organize and helping to create jobs for folks to just talk to their family and friends about voting. Let's do that in Kentucky from the beginning. And, you know, we'll beat them. We will. We don't have a choice.
I appreciate you saying that. I remember that I asked you at Fancy Vax, and at the time when I saw you, I was so very, very ill, but it meant a lot to me. I had just gotten over COVID, although I was fully vaccinated since May 4th, and I contracted it from someone that was fully vaccinated. So this misinformation has to stop. But I did ask you a question as far as just right here where I am,
Yeah,
and where your home is in Jefferson County, that there's just a 20% rate of African Americans that are vaccinated, and this trend seems to go all across our country. What can, you know, someone like myself who is African American, what more can we do? And also collectively as a group, what more can we do to get our most marginalized out there to get vaccinated?
Well, you know, one thing that I've seen, and I know you've seen it too, that now in the news, we hear about the conspiracies. We hear about the folks that are, you know, saying just really outrageous and very concerning things. But a lot of folks just don't know. There are still a lot of people that don't know what's going on. They have a reason. They are justified in not trusting what's happening in general. There's a lot of reason not trust government overall. That's why I'm running, because we need people in there that actually understand the struggle, that have gone through some things, that are going to fight for us. So we have to empathize with folks that are afraid, but we still have to show up and speak the truth for them. So you all using this platform is helping folks. I'm going to convene some physicians to answer questions and dispel myths. You know, we have to go out into the community. We got to go to folks and just let them know the information that is available and cut through the noise and the lies. And we have to keep doing it. And that's the big thing. We can't just do it one time and hope that they're going to be okay. And we can't do what the Republicans in leadership in the state legislature are saying, well, just have a free pizza party. Look, this is too serious. One of the biggest things that we needed now is relief for folks who are on the front lines that have had to keep working because they couldn't afford to stay home. They had to take care of their family. Unemployment was at a historic level in Kentucky. Businesses have been shuttered because of this thing. We need that investment, and folks are losing their homes. All of this stuff is happening, and at the federal level, we have the chance to put relief on the ground, invest in infrastructure, and our senators are voting against it. And so I need our folks to know our power. While we're fighting on the ground, we need folks that are in Washington that are going to fight for us. But in the meantime, and within all of that, thank you for what you all do. Thank you for always speaking the truth. It's never in vain. And I'm going to use my platform and my voice to join with you to do it.
That's great. Thanks so much, Charles. I think we have one last question from Ken.
Hey, Charles, I don't think we've met before, but I'm not supposed to tell people who I voted for, but I did vote for you at least one time in my life. So I appreciate that you run on a progressive platform.
Thank you.
I really do. I appreciate progressive politics. Hence, that's why we do this show. But one of the things I'm really concerned about is, elected politicians and media outlets and different, even people posting on, stuff on the internet, calling you and Democrats like socialist, liberal, extremists,
Yeah.
demons, and worse. And one of the things that I think really hurt McGrath when she ran is they called her, and this was never embraced by her campaign, a Trump-loving Democrat. And I don't think there's any risk of anyone calling you that. So at that, at the very least, I feel like is good. But Tucker Carlson tonight gets over 4 million viewers, and pushes Fox News to the #1 news broadcasting site, and this stuff like Pizzagate and the insurrection and all of this stuff just takes off like wildfire. The most shared content on the internet is often a lie. So
Right.
so my question to you, I know it's a very long-winded opening up, but is it possible to dispel these false accusations and blatant spinning behind things like Black Lives Matter, the Green New Deal, Afghanistan, and so far? Is all fair in politics, or should there be accountability for our representatives? What does accountability mean to you?
Yeah, well, in this moment in time, there seems to be very little accountability in politics. It seems to be the case that anything goes, and it's costing lives, and it's undermining our pursuits of democracy. We haven't fully realized democracy. We're still trying to do that, and all of these lies that go unchecked, folks that are running for office now, chasing the boogeyman. I look at Rand Paul as almost like Scooby-Doo. He's chasing for this boogeyman all the time to keep people afraid, to keep us fighting amongst ourselves. And at the end of the day, you take the mask off, it's him there destroying us. And I believe that accountability has to start with the democratic process for us, which means we need to get him out of there. And we need to have folks that are in these positions of authority, local, state, and federal level, that are going to make sure that we are not only having leaders that are accountable to us, but that our laws reflect justice and humanity. And look, I get called a lot of things. Rand Paul put an email out right after I launched and called me a racial left candidate. Look, I'm not going to give him the excuse to say that there was a slip up. What in the world is a racial? And they call me radical. Look, I don't care what people call me. I care about the people of Kentucky. And what I think we need to see are folks that are going to stand up, not be afraid of our position, not be afraid of what we believe in, but still show love and still lead with unity to say we can speak the truth. From the hood to the holler, that message for me, I want to see more folks running for office, school board, local, state and federal level, regular folks that never thought their voice mattered. I need them to know they matter. And so that's why this campaign is important. We're building infrastructure, and that's ultimately how we'll get that accountability. My daughter's name is Justice, my third daughter. I need justice to mean something. And that's what I'm fighting for. And we are going to win, and we're going to make that happen.
Well, that's a fantastic wrap up. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave our audience with? I know that you've been incredibly generous with your time, and we appreciate that. But we have another story we need to cover before we move on out for the night. So, anything you want to say to just fire up the troops one last chance before we head off?
Yeah, I want to tell everyone, bet on Kentucky. There's a lot of cynicism. A lot of folks doubt that change is possible. I believe in us. I know what we can do. Let's prove the doubters wrong. And go to charlesbooker.org, sign up to get involved with me. We're going to organize across Kentucky. Of course, we'll beat Rand Paul, but we're going to do so much more than that. This is for the people. Let's do it.
Awesome. I think that, there's a lot of people who are listening, a lot of people who are getting fired up. And 440 days to go, people. Let us make this happen, huh?
That's right.
Thank you so much, Charles. Have a great evening, and I hope you find some chance to get some rest there with your 3 daughters.
I will do my best. Thank you all.
All right, take care. All right, so we're gonna thanks again to Charles Booker, who is running an impressive campaign to take on Rand Paul, who, of course, you know, if you watched this show before, you know there's not a lot of love lost about Rand Paul. I'm not a big fan of Rand Paul over here at Kernels of Truth. But of course, if Rand Paul wants to come on and talk about why Charles Booker's wrong or why we're wrong and why he's really a stand-up great guy and cares about all the people of Kentucky, he is welcome to come on our show.
Can you imagine? Can I ask Rand Paul a question? Because I would like to ask Rand Paul a question.
Can't be about his hair. He's touchy.
I got some questions.
We have some questions. All right, so we're going to get back to news of the week. We have one final story about one of our favorite issues here, Mitchpocracy, and how hypocritical Mitch McConnell can be. Kimberly, you got a story for us? If you do, we can't hear you.
Do.
Oh, there you go. All right, now we can hear you.
Of course I do. I was so much into what former state representative Charles Booker was saying. I did not actually pull my story up, but I can do that right now. So, you know, you guys could go ahead on and talk amongst yourselves as I look it up on my
phone. Yeah.
I've been like sharing a lot, you know, I've been just sharing.
Yeah, sharing a lot. I appreciate that.
I feel like this has to do with you know, the opioid crisis, which has been an epidemic here in Kentucky, and it's just it's devastating. I mean, I feel like that there's more homeless people walking our streets since the pandemic has happened, because of the tragedy that's going on with this. And I you know, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that this stuff continues. I felt like Cocaine Mitch takes credit, deserves none for getting us money to combat the opioid crisis here in Kentucky.
No, right. I think it's constantly astounding how Republicans are willing to claim credit for anything that people like that the government does, and then just line up to vilify everything else, right? Anything that the resources are bringing in, they're more than happy to take credit for it. And, you know, there's a lot of things the government's doing right now. The American Rescue Plan was a historic investment in America to help us get through the pandemic. And, you know, it's pretty confounding to watch what's happening. You know, and Kimberly, I don't know if you're ready to kind of step in here, or if you'd like me to just describe a little bit of what we're dealing with.
Yes, actually, we're going to be talking about my other favorite subject, because it seems like everybody's gotten a little soft on him here lately, and that would be Mitch McConnell and all of the Mitchpocracy. Did I say that right, Ken? Mitchpocracy?
Yes, Mitchpocracy.
Mitchpocracy, that's right. I like that, because of the simple fact that the Senate Minority Leader, which is Mitch McConnell, of course, he's always doing something that seems like it's good, but it turns left, right? And so he didn't vote for the Democrats' American Rescue Plan, but he did say Thursday that it creates opportunities for Kentucky to strengthen our efforts to help people recover from addiction. He said that we would have an enormous amount of money coming into the $1.9 trillion relief package, as well as the $2 trillion coronavirus aid relief and economic security, called CARES, okay? So he personally went through Congress last year, and, you know, he was saying that as he thinks of the priorities to use the money, he can't think of anything more important than addiction recovery. Well, we all believe in Mitch for that, because Kentucky is at the top of the list as far as opioid use and overdoses, trending worse than the whole United States. So yes, that's a very good thing to say. So he went to the Crown Recovery Center in Washington County, right here in Kentucky, and he and that guy, that Kentucky Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, had just met with people at a recovery center and discussed how they were going to pursue this funding that's freed up now. And, you know, they're going to do something as far as helping people, but he doesn't really know how much federal money that Kentucky's going to be able to get for addicted individuals in our state. And he's saying that it's a one-time opportunity, but there are ways for Mitch McConnell to actually get this money. Number one, he is the Senate minority leader. And then number two, he still has some power, guys. He still has some power. So he's also talking about, you know, Cameron, I don't believe anything he says. I don't believe anything till I see the checks and they've been cashed. That's how I believe in it. Cameron and Mitch McConnell were talking about the $460 million for a huge multi-state settlement that's in the works for like big companies, big pharma, like Johnson and Johnson, you know, all of these big companies that had to give over billions of dollars to the opioid crisis because they lied. They said that they told doctors, this is going to change the game. And doctors unknowingly got their patients addicted to these opioids. So, you know, Mitch, he's saying that he is so, you know, excited about this. And he's saying that they're going to be opening up even more recovery centers in Kentucky. All of this that he's talking about, it sounds wonderful. It sounds deliciously, you know, perfecto. But when it comes to Mitch McConnell, paired with Attorney General Daniel Cameron, I think I'm just going to have to wait and see. What do you guys think, Aaron?
Well, yeah, I mean, sounds good, but I don't trust anything that comes out of those guys' mouth for sure. But you know, again, it's just that crazy, you know, willingness to stand up and say, "Hey, we're going to spend these federal dollars on this really important issue," and not, you know, not mention that every single Republican voted against the source of those dollars. Like, it was up to Mitch, $0 would be going from these federal efforts into those local projects because they all voted against it. So, you know, it makes me sick watching them, you know, scheme to do, you know, ostensibly good things for our state with federal dollars that they had they had their way would not exist. Again, Mitchpocracy, people. And I do want to give a quick credit to the Mitchpocracy term coined by, I believe, our organizing chair, Kit O'Connor. So I wanted to make sure they got the proper shout out and accolades for coining the term Mitchpocracy. All right, Doug, anything you want to add on the issue?
Yes, I think anybody who has watched this show knows that I have a special love for Mitch McConnell. Anyway, so yes, I have some comments. He's been our senator for, is it 36 years going on, whatever. And he's famous for voting against something that is good for Kentucky in order to get monetary support from corporations. Then he'll come home to Kentucky to tell us again what a great job he is doing for us due to the passage of a bill that he advocated against and voted against. Kentucky is the fourth poorest state in the United States. Minimum wage is $7.25. The federal poverty level computes to about $16.13 per hour. And Kentucky has over 700,000 people who are at or below the poverty level. Don't you think that also affects the addiction recovery? Would raising the minimum wage and providing funding to stimulate local economic relief. Wouldn't all that help? And he's been the senior senator in the United States Senate, and he hasn't brought that stuff to us. He just comes around every now and then and says what a great job he's doing, and here's some money.
You want Mitch McConnell to raise the minimum wage? Is that what you're mentioning? Is that your idea? That's crazy talk. Because that would be good for people. That would, lift a lot of folks up. Yeah, no, we, especially now, like, we love to talk about the frontline workers. The people are there forced to deal with COVID kind of firsthand. No one gave them a raise. No one's talking about, oh yeah, the frontline workers, because you got a job that is just can't be done remotely, a job you have to be there in person. They're quite frequently low paid jobs. And what's Mitch want to do about it? He just wants to give you a high five. Thanks for helping us get through the pandemic. Yes, there was some appreciation for Mitch McConnell from this broadcast recently, because he was in fact using his own campaign funds to run ads telling people to get vaccinated. But that's kind of the bare minimum, really. He wasn't calling out the rest of the Republicans who were muddying the waters. Rand Paul, who's saying, oh yeah, no, there's no proof that I should get a shot because I've already had COVID. Remember when I tried to expose half the Senate? All those 80-year-olds I was swimming with in the pool when I had COVID and I knew I was at risk. So that's not true, right? The studies show that you should get a vaccination if you've had COVID. It helps you survive it. So yeah, but sure, Mitch has done a few things that are from time to time not as bad as most Republicans. That's pretty much all we can say about that guy. But at any rate, we probably won't ever have to deal with him in an election because he's probably going to die in office. At any rate, we should move on. I think we've got some excitement.
Who's to even say? I mean, but how does Cocaine Mitch, like, he embraces this? This is a topic that he embraces. How in the world can a guy named Cocaine Mitch, who didn't vote for the American Rescue Plan, how is he even good to fight any kind of drug war when he embraces that concept? He made T-shirts.
As far as using his campaign money, he's too old to run again. And it's like you said, he probably is going to die in office. I think one of us on our committee has made a prediction about that. But he doesn't need his campaign money now because he's not going to run again.
And also he's really good at making it. So if he needs it, if he needs more, if he is alive, in 5 years or whatever, he'll probably he can find some more. How does his hand look? It doesn't look as black as it once did. As he's gotten some pretty serious magic, to fix his, because when it happened to Dumbledore, he died. It was inevitable. But apparently that black magic that Mitch uses is more powerful than Dumbledore's good magic. All right, so we've gone off the deep end. We're going to move on to the action events calendar, which I believe our friend Kimberly is going to share with us.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And in our action events calendar, Progress Kentucky has joined the Kentucky Voting Rights Coalition, a loose association of organizations committed to ensuring that previously incarcerated people reclaim their right to vote and want more citizens across our Commonwealth registered and voting in every election. They have some events coming up to put these goals into action, and you can find out more about their efforts online. So in Douglas Park concert in Lexington on this weekend. No, actually, that's tomorrow, the 26th. I'm living a week behind everybody. Seriously, it's like I've lost a week in time. I don't know where it went. But tomorrow at 6:30, they're going to have a voter registration table. Then at Northern Kentucky University, voter registration table will be August the 30th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Grassroots Lobbying for Voter Rights webinar is going to be August the 31st from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And then the voter registration table at Kroger in Louisville, which is going to be on September the 2nd at 5:30. So you can find all of these events if you go to www.mobilize.us, and then you can put /KFTC/events. So you can look those up for yourself and
And
go
it's in
ahead and
the
register.
it's in our the link is in that
Yes, and
text.
the link is in up there on the screen for you right now. So have your pen and paper. You know, when it's my turn, I'm going to have some great information for you. So Progress Kentucky has launched a petition to urge the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure to investigate what I believe to be unethical medical advice from Dr. Rand Paul. If you're interested in what we have to say about that, you can find it online right there. Also coming up is Lex Do This. Lex Do This is a campaign to get the city of Lexington and surrounding communities vaccinated. If you would like to join other community members for a neighborhood canvas, more information can be found right there on the screen on the Lex Beat COVID. So I want to let you all know I'm very, very excited about next week. Next week on the Kernels of Truth, we're going to be joined by Mr. Bill Londegren, the president of the Kentucky's AFL-CIO, to discuss the state of the workers' movement in Kentucky and labor's expectations for the PRO Act, their current legislative priority in Washington, D.C. right now. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4, is affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE. Also, Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. More information can be found at progresskentucky.org. You can go on that website also to learn how you can volunteer and support our ongoing efforts. Production services and media content are provided by Couchfire Media. Couchfire Media ignites multi-camera, live stream, fiction narrative, nonfiction educational, informative animation, and commercial video production content. More information about Couchfire Media can be found at couchfiremedia.com. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't let everybody know that the Jones Report, you can find us on the Jones Report radio program. Right now, we are restructuring and doing some great things to prepare ourselves for the fall season. So next week, I will be able to tell you exactly who we may have on and what we'll be doing. But otherwise, my co-host always, my good friend Betsy Foster, magnificent force in the political arena. Also, Mike Breuer, and our production and producer, Mr. Ken Howe. Know you guys love him. And of course, yours truly, Kimberly Cecil Jones. The music that you hear comes from the geniusness of Mr. Nate Orshan. You can find more information and listen to his music. I suggest that you do. And you can find him at natosongs.com. And that's N-A-T-O songs.com. So I'd also like to say this to you. This is WLXU 93.9 LP FM Radio Lex Lexington, the voice of the people. The views expressed on Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth and our guests are not necessarily the views of Radio Lex or its board of directors. The views expressed on Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth are our own. If you miss our weekly show on Radio Lex, don't worry. Live video cast content and source links can be found on the Facebook and YouTube channels. Audio podcasts are available. Yes, they are on Apple, Google, Spotify, and others by searching Progress Kentucky. Links to all of our media platforms can be found right there. Once again, find all that you need on progresskentucky.org. And as we move towards this week, and we think about everything that's going on with the Delta variant, the Lambda variant possibly coming through, West Nile happening with the mosquitoes in the state of Kentucky, don't fear. Fear breeds more fear. Fear breeds more contempt. Fear breeds more chaos. Wouldn't it be better to just be nice to someone? Wouldn't it be better just to make someone smile? Because the good things you do for others will come back on you. And I like to say it was great having Charles Booker here. Always much love to the best host ever. Well, running neck and neck with me, Mr. Aaron Viles, Mr. Doug Fresh, who I affectionately call Dougie Fresh because his information is always fresh and truthful. Our producer and production director, Mr. Ken Howe, and Annabelle and Nate, and all the people that comprise Kernels of Truth and Progress Kentucky. And guess
you're
what?
Amazing.
We'll see you here.
You're amazing,
next
Kimberly.
Week, same bat channel, 7 p.m. Bill Lundgren, you gotta watch. We'll see you then. Have a good week.